Yes? This is Dr. Oppenheimer. Who is this? Who? Do I know you? Yes, that is here. Mr. Higgins, I have to ask, how did you get this number? I wish she hadn't. I don't give interviews, even when the journalist is thorough enough to send the questions in advance. Mr. Higgins, I gather from your cover letter that you know I'm dying. Multiple cancers now. I was always a smoker. They say that has something to do with it. I have maybe 6 weeks of voice left, maybe less. I have a meeting today with my wife and children, a few others, a family meeting, if you want to call it that, while there is still voice. So I will save my voice for me and for them. I'm sorry, I was never comfortable giving interviews. I only gave them when government or government agencies said I had to. I never sought it out, even when I was vilified. I'm not leaving any papers or journals to give any of you any insight. There'll be a few old letters, a huge collection of scientific papers, but that's it. I will read your questions, perhaps answer in writing to one or two, but that's it. Certainly no face-to-face or phone interviews in this meeting today. Thank you. Margaret, yes, your intern has apparently given my office number to a journalist. Would you be kind enough to stop her? Thank you. Oh, and Margaret, don't put anyone else through. Only family. Much obliged. Close the cover before striking. Close the cover before striking. I wonder what happens if you don't close the cover before striking. You there today? Any day? It's the Jew. I don't believe in Jesus. And I don't believe in you most days. The rest of the time, I don't know. I toy with you as an idea. I don't know if you're life, but I know that you're death. I bet you think I'm going to light this cigarette, even when they told me it would hasten my death. Well, I won't. Especially not today when I have to hold forth in front of family. No. But I miss cigarettes. Having them dangle dramatically from my lips, using them to gesture with my hands, just having something for my hands to do. No, I won't light it. But I will put it in my mouth. I took this out of my private archive last night to take one more look at it, to remind myself why I became an anti-nuclear fission activist, opposed to the hydrogen bomb in any event. Not that it mattered. I have an agreement with Kitty to destroy all those archives when I'm gone. I don't want anyone to have them. This collection of photographs was sent to me by someone in Japan after the war who wanted me to see the effects, the horrible effects of nuclear annihilation. The photographs are stunning. They are grotesque. This is why I know you're not there. You should have told me to close the cover before striking. You should have had me do that. That was in your power. No, you had to let me have my triumph. My science over the future. the actual living people, the Manhattan Project. And I thought for a time, and you knew it if you're there, that the detonation of the bombs might very well ignite the whole world. And you also knew, if you're there, that I would never regret my work. And I don't. Working an idea, a theory, making it become a reality. I don't have words for that kind of elation. Still, that was in your power. You should have had me do that. You should have had me close the cover before striking. Is this the face that launched the end of the world and taught mankind to destroy itself? Come, Jean, bring me my soul again. Oh, Jean, where are you? Is your death my fault too? Is it? Is it partly? My girl, where are you now? Remember John Donne, Anne Donne, Undone? How about Julius Robert Oppenheimer, Jean Francis Tatlock, undone and outdone? Busy old fool, unruly son, why dost thou thus through windows and through curtains call on us? Must to thy motion lovers' seasons run? Saucy pedantic wretch, go chide late schoolboys and sour apprentices, call court huntsmen, tell them the king will ride, call country ants to harvest offices. Love, all alike, knows no season nor clime, nor hours, days, or months, which are the rags of time. Oh, Jean, wherever you are, know that these are the rags of my time. And if I were a Christian, which I no doubt should have been, I would have hope of seeing you in the next world. But for the likes of me, there is no next world. I think the ancient Jews had something of that, but I struggle with the concept of a God. Oh, most days I don't think about that struggle so I don't suffer, but these are the rags of my time. I am tempted to light up. Oh, if you're there, give me power. Not the power not to smoke. Maybe some of that. No, the power to get through all this. All this dad is dying and we need to talk about it, and the time left, and the money, the funeral, the ashes, the legacy. The legacy. The legacy. I have bones to pick with you there. Most of that must have been your doing. I did what I could do. This whole subject of identity. Who am I? I call myself the Jew, but I'm not even that. I had one Gentile grandmother. I'm a mutt. I often think if I'd been born and raised on the Lower East Side, all bustling and rowdy and crowded. We had a few relatives there, but I hardly ever saw them. And when my parents did, they were so damn condescending. My family gave up the Jewish traditions and faith, and my grandparents' time, maybe earlier, I knew next to nothing of that. No, you had me raised in enormous luxury. Private nannies and tutors, the best, most nutritious of food, handmade clothing, the doctors and barbers that came to our apartment on the upper genteel west side. And let me tell you, God, that was one proper house. We spoke English for one thing. My father never spoke German at home. I don't think he spoke it much at work either. I must have been an adult before I even heard Yiddish. And there were all these things we were never to speak of, like mother's partially formed hand with the prosthetic thumb and finger, and the brother that you took back between Frank and me. Louis. I have to think hard just to remember his name. I don't know why Lewis died. I bought right into all that silence stuff. I was a kid. Once, years later, a girlfriend asked one too many questions about Mother's hand, and we shut her up by freezing her out. In the Adler business, Adler took all the good stuff out of the Judeo-Christian heritage and reframed it into a more practical context. He called it a practical religion, a religion of deed over creed. All the Germanic Jews we knew, they bought right into all that stuff and sought to become the best possible Americans. Try as we did we get there? The Ethical Culture Society became a kind of exclusive club, social thing. It was still mostly good. It was also how we coped. Emma Lazarus, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Ethical culture. I often think, though, that life amongst the hard-scrabbled Jews would have better prepared me. Why didn't you see to that? Do you remember that I wasn't allowed to have playmates? I was alone. You made Mother so scared after you took Lewis back. I wasn't much allowed near other kids. Frank was 8 years younger, too young to be a pal. And what about those damn piano lessons? Why'd you make me do that? Why did you give me one child who's a genius and another who's a dunce? Peter's not a dunce. He's just not an academic. Felix Bloch believes that Peter's a survivor. I surely hope so. I know he's a sensitive person. And when I got a wife, why did you give me one whose idea of motherhood was at the bottom of a bottle? When Tony was new, Kitty ran off, left a newborn with someone for 3.5 months. It wasn't much better. Kitty was drunk behind the wheel of a car. She had enemies. She dragged Peter around, complained bitterly about his tendency to be overweight. I wasn't good at being a parent. Couldn't you have pushed us in a better direction? And Kitty's damn sense of entitlement. After all the government put us through, Kitty went and spent the Enrico Fermi Prize money, the symbol that we were once again the best possible Americans and socially acceptable, even before we had the money in hand, on a full-length mink coat. I suppose I'm angry, off and on, that the Manhattan Project was a success. I'm happy that it ended the war, but angry about the trade-off. When I learned what was happening to Jews abroad, I was horrified. You'll remember I had a hard enough time of it with Hebrewism as a student in Germany before the war, even at Harvard before that. But Einstein told me that his graduate students told him that from 1945 on, hope for a new day, hope for progress, hope for a better tomorrow, nearly disappears from literature. I try not to think about the destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but I think about the loss of hope. That is at my gate. I hate that distinction. I have loved art and culture so much, and you let me pull the rug out from under it. I loathe that I was allowed to be arrogant and a liar. I talked, I taught, I hypothesized, I interrupted everyone, my word, the brilliant work, the most important observation, the most important work, and I lied. I lied about Chevalier. I lied to cover up my own lie about being approached by communists to sell secrets. I had to point the finger at someone who was not a physics colleague, so why not just bring down a professor of French literature? Did the Ethical Culture Society training help me there? No, you needed to do it. You needed to stop me. You needed to remind me of the humanity of another living person. You needed to stop me! You needed to stop me. And then you saw to it that I had my comeuppance. On the morning of April 12, 1954, the newspapers revealed I'd gone from a hero, the nation's best-known nuclear scientist, our best hope at restraint from our catastrophic rush to overarmament, to a villain. I'd had my security clearance revoked as a possible security risk. It was ungrateful of everyone, even you. And it meant my withdrawal from public life. One historian has it that my predicament in its hearing is the single worst blot on Eisenhower's domestic record. That is cold comfort, my friend. If I was a security risk, did we have a single secret left? Damn, we had nuclear superiority for 4 short years, then they had it. Somebody squealed, I didn't do it, but I took the hit. Don't you see the irony? I had been the chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission's General Advisory Committee. Then I was silenced. People were losing their minds. And Joe McCarthy creep brandishes a paper that he says has the names of 205 known communists on it, and you let people believe him. And did you have to sick teller on me when I was down and out? You know I kept him on ice during the Manhattan Project. Tell we were even kind of friendly then. No, he thought that my very late-gotten feelings about the hydrogen bomb, his pet project, were motivated by my fear that my pet project, the atom bomb, was about to be overshadowed. Given the destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, how could he not believe me when I shouted, "That's enough bombs! Stop the bombs!" He had to turn it into some ugly personal vendetta. And then jump in the picture for the New York Times when I'm reclaimed a hero by Johnson. At least you let them photograph Kitty glaring at him. Why? Oh. If you're there, I should not be talking like this. It's because I'm dying. I wouldn't want you to think I'm not grateful too. Because I am. On the rare, very rare occasions when I count my blessings, I am grateful for Benjamin Oppenheimer. Although somewhat akin to a peasant, he was also a proud European, and the one that gave me the minerals collection labeled in Latin and in Greek that became my whole start in the sciences. That was such an important turning point for me. Up until then, I had always answered poet or painter when somebody asked me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I am so grateful for physics. I once told Frank I needed physics more than friends. I'm grateful for my teachers, all but 1 or 2, my mentors, my colleagues, the projects, my intellect, my students. I'm even grateful for Truman and Eisenhower. More Truman than Eisenhower. I'm very grateful that you gave me the honor of my name back later in Kennedy and Johnson's time. You knew that I was attracted to politically astute, intellectual, beautiful, married women. And you let me escape with my name and hide intact most times. I got in a lot of trouble with that. Linus Pauling cut ties with me so fast after Ava, we never got to discuss his holy vitamin C. I'm grateful for a lot. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I have been so tormented and so heavily flawed. That must have been harder for you than for me. I don't know how this is supposed to work. I only know that I can't prove it through mathematics. If I could, I would know if you were there. At present, there are several problems most pressing of solutions. The relationship of the tau meson and the theta meson. Why the antiproton interacts with such a large cross-section of nuclei. Whether we can understand the scattering of pions and S states. At present, we have two heavy mesons, tau and theta, with identical masses and identical lifetimes, yet opposite parities. If any of you have any thoughts on this, you may drop me a note in the office fishbowl. I'm sure someday we'll all have to give papers on this. You have your assignments and projects. The due dates are engraved in stone as on the syllabus. I will see you in the laboratories. If any of you need me before the next class, contact me. Mr. Lee, if I can see you in my office, I would like to discuss your findings. Thank you, class. Sit, please, sit. I intend to. I'm on a mission, Lee, very late in my career, to get to know my students better, to get to know them as human beings. I had a couple of excellent models for that once. No. Excellent models the best, but not long-lived. Yu and Yang have suggested looking for violations of parity in beta decay and the release of electrons from a radioactive substance such as cobalt-60. I would follow that up. See what you can discover. We have the resources here. Lee, the real reason I wanted to see you was to encourage you as a teacher. I have maybe 10 years of teaching left, maybe less. I may not teach at all. It took me years to know how to teach, to understand how other people's minds, other than mine, apprehend information. I'm told early in my teaching that I was arrogant and needlessly obscure, especially in Germany. They write course evaluations over there. Even advanced students said awful things, that they hadn't learned anything at all. Gradually that changed. I did not set out to be the world's top nuclear scientist, and I did not set out to win a Nobel Prize, despite what some may say. Yes, I have been nominated twice, in 1945 and in 1951. I don't think I can ever win. My gift to humanity is too heavy. I overheard you explaining the role of our theoretical physics to young Miller. I think even advanced students have a hard time with it. And with the math, although I'm no whiz kid there, people are always pointing out errors in my computation. I enjoyed your patient explaining as our science as a branch of physics that employs mathematical models and abstractions of physical systems to explain and predict natural phenomena. Dr. Einstein would have been nothing without us, and he enjoyed pointing out errors in my equations. Lee, we must make more humane what we teach the young physicist. More detailed, more robust. What we say, what we think of the man and woman of art and letter. If we're to contribute to our common cultural experience, there has to be an understanding that all these things meet somewhere. Roger Bacon. Roger Bacon was wrong to turn the world onto the absolute value of empiricism. That was wrong. Maybe I was wrong in naming our test site Trinity after John Donne's poem. In many ways, I was trying to refute Bacon. You can do that. You can do that better than I. So what makes a great teacher? I've had several. Two so outstanding, I don't have words. Herbert Winslow Smith, who became my mentor at the Ethical Culture Society. and remained my mentor his whole life. He encouraged me. He did not make me feel like I was an intellectual freak. When I thought I was going to be a writer, he patiently read through my short stories. I can hardly believe he stayed the course. The stories were bad. They were juvenile. Still, he encouraged me. When that awful thing happened to me at Camp Koenig when I was 14, when I was bullied by my cabin mates and called cutie, because I wrote to my parents and tattled on them when they exchanged stories of sex. I hadn't had that information before. My parents came up to check on me. A few nights later, the other boys stripped me, painted me green, tied me up to be discovered the next morning. It was Mr. Smith I told. Not right away, but eventually. He convinced me my whole life would not be dominated by that one incident, that I wasn't bad. I just needed to learn to play it closer to the vest. He basically showed me how to do that. He taught me far more than literature. And Dr. Paul Ehrenfest, he was my teacher. I did a postdoc with him. He was not concerned with my errors in mathematical computation, although we sought to correct them. No. He was concerned with clarity, with genuine comprehension. Ehrenfest worried about his graduate students, actually worried about them. Had they been properly mentored by important physicists and chemists? Did they have enough letters of recommendation in their file? Were they getting enough to eat? Were they getting employed? Were they happy? I never thought about my students like that. I thought any student of mine would go on no matter what I said or did. Not much was happening in Leiden with Ehrenfest at the time, or so I thought. I moved on. I've often wondered if I had listened more, if I had been more sensitive, would I have known what was about to happen? Ehrenfest thought that physics as theory was getting lost. I thought that was temporary. I was wrong. His letters after that still retained a bit of a joke. He could be charming and amusing. Ehrenfest always worried about his youngest son, Vasek, who had Down syndrome. Oh, he worked and worked and worked to provide a better future for Vasek. But the world was such a different place then. In 1933, after having made arrangements for his other children, Ehrenfest traveled to Amsterdam where Vasek was in a special program. And he shot Vasek. He shot himself. If I have been a poor teacher, then the time that is left for me as a teacher must be dedicated to the models of Herbert Winslow Smith and Paul Ehrenfest. It's the only way that I can thank them. Of course, it's not enough. It is not nearly enough. I hope you really are there. We mortals understand so very little. We need to understand more of what you know. If you are omnipotent, omniscient, ever-present, ever-strong, then you're also the source of all power. And I need power. Probing memory is hard, but I think it'll give me the power I need today. I have never prayed in any serious way before, but I pray for that. This one, I think, predictable. If you were to remake time, to do things over again, what would you change? How? How can we do it? How can we remake time? What is time anyway? Does it exist independently in the physical world, or is it only in our minds? Are animals aware of it, or only humans? Are there times when it expands endlessly, such as when we split the atom and later when I took life? Can a sequence of years dwindle to a matter of instants? Einstein held that time and space kept intertwining, a reversal invariance in which there was no backwards or forwards. It was all particles and velocities and instantaneous events. Descartes held that you recreate the body with each passing moment so that time is a kind of sustenance to us. Newton held that time was an absolute entity, a stream flowing at a continuous rate. While in Hindu philosophy, all time, past, present, and future are present in one God, who is himself timeless, but the God of time is personified as death? Is that how I'm to apprehend these rags of time? As an assurance of my death? A life lived both within and without God? What would I change? What could I change? Would I change my lost years of love for Jean? Would that have made any difference? Would you have wanted me to do that? Would I have changed my elation at having split the atom and having made things fall apart? The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dim tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. Was that my role? Would that have made any difference? Was I supposed to do that?
Gentlemen, please, if there's to be applause, let it be for all of us. The atom has been split and used to win a world war. I know I speak for all of us when I say none of us have felt elation like this before. Teamwork. That is what it has been from the start. Teamwork. The day is ours. Some of you will stay in Los Alamos. Some of you will go. I'm here, there, and everywhere, it seems, over the next few months. By the way, no one knows we're having this meeting. It's just ours. Just our moment of victory. A lot seemed to happen all at once in this war, didn't it? Just as we're to declare victory over Germany, Roosevelt dies from a stroke. 2 weeks later, Hitler dead by his own hand. The good king and the bad. May 8, Germany surrenders unconditionally. We didn't know any of that was going to happen, so work on the Manhattan Project continued. You'll remember, we even tested our blast equipment on May 7. But certainly when the bomb was ready, it wouldn't be used against the Germans. They were out of the picture. It would be used against the Japanese. Now, many of you have asked why we did not proceed with the Hiroshima and Kyoto plan. I felt I could not tell you until now. Well, it was felt that since Kyoto was a center of education and religion, its destruction would make the Japanese even angrier. I dare say we've never had an angrier adversary than the Japanese. If we were going to defeat them more down and out, if you will, we needed to pick another city. Truman agreed. Boys, it was also thought that if we had to proceed with an invasion of Japan, we would have lost far too many men. If any of you have even a moment of regret, I want you to remember that. We've had some gallows humor here, haven't we? The neighborhood, Jornada del Muerto, Day of the Dead. Test date to put Fat Man together, Friday, July 13. Test time, 4 a.m. July 16, means something spooky to the Hindus. And then the actual test at 5:30 a.m. Gentlemen, we saw that we were successful. We knew the war would end and that nothing ever again would be the same. And to add to it, the military had to explain the magnitude of Trinity. Remember, all they could come up with was a press release saying we had accidentally ignited a storage area in the desert. as if Trinity was an unintentional bonfire. They picked up our radioactive fallout 120 miles away, and the white heat blast was seen 200 miles away. They were trying to hide the Rocky Mountains. And the rest of it we know. August 5, evening in Washington, Hiroshima. No more. Not as big a blast as Trinity, but effective. Oh, completely effective. August 9, Nagasaki, another fat man. Again, completely effective. August 14, end of story. Lads, if it hadn't been, we would have had to build more bombs. We were fresh out. I thought you'd want to hear this. This was written to me by Rossi Lamanitz, a former student of mine, also one of the infantrymen who would have had to land on those Japanese beaches if they hadn't dropped our bombs. Hey, Oppie, you're about the best loved man in these parts, as are we all. My only regret is that we didn't get it done in time to use on the Germans.
So you think I would have changed that? Never. I would have never changed that. That would have been up to you. And I don't think I would have changed anything with Jean. Except I would have implored you to let her live a longer life, and perhaps a more realized one. Once on my travels, I happened into an abandoned Hindu temple. There was an inscription on the wall I could not read. I asked a man nearby what it said. He told me it read, "And God has the last laugh." If you're there, that's true. You have the last laugh. I couldn't change time, even if I wanted to. Here. No. Here, no. Here. I don't want them to see you or us. It's okay, just know that they're out there. Their cameras and their binoculars and their telescopes. I'm supposed to be in Los Alamos, and I'm here. Gina, I've been followed and scrutinized for a while, and whether you know it or not, you have been too. And that's because of me, and I'm sorry. First, understand I did not ignore your call. When I heard you needed me, I traveled fast. Gina, I understand depression. I truly do. Once it got so bad for me, I nearly killed a hated colleague. I actually tried to poison the man. My parents were there, stepped in. Thank all that's good. I was put on a kind of probation for a while, made to see a head shrinker. Kitty knows. She knows I'm here. She knows, and she doesn't approve. She knows we were in love for 8 years. She knows we almost married twice, and I proposed to you countless other times. She knows our love was artistic, spiritual, overlapping science, but beyond it. No, don't remonstrate with me. Things are going to be said here, and they need to be. Jean, you're a physician. You are the head shrinker. On one hand, I want to say, physician, heal thyself. And on the other, I think if I tell you I understand, you'll get better. Dear girl, you're a decade younger than I, and older in spirit. You were always the most charming, most witty, smartest, prettiest girl in the room. I don't know how many men wanted to take you home, but they chose me. Me, the smartest, funniest, but gooniest guy in the room got you. Pay no attention to them. Screw the security administrations. Screw the FBI. They're not the good guys. No, they're the bad guys. They don't work to protect the people. They work to get in the way of all that's most human and enduring among the people. You know what they think we're doing. They think we're up here making mad, passionate love. The only kind of love that's going to be made here tonight is conciliatory, sweet. Please hold me tight, affection. We stopped being the other kind of lovers a long time ago, and for genuine reason.
But no. They're going to say I'm an adulterer, a security risk, cohabiting with a known communist. I don't care!
I think the reason behind the depressions, and I mean both yours and mine, is that there was no proper coda to our relationship, our protracted relationship. Technically, you broke it off. You knew I'd go that way. Oh, it got messy for me after. I threw myself into Kitty's arms, although she was married. She got pregnant. Her husband knew it was my child, but refused to go quietly. She got a fast divorce. We married. Our child was born. Oh, messy. But it was balm in Gilead for a sore heart. You killed me, girl. Oh, it wasn't your fault, Jean. It wasn't anybody's fault. They always seemed to happen when we were most happy. Just might make it to the courthouse to marry. I was puzzled. I was angry. And then you'd be back, as if nothing had happened. There was also this glitch. I hardly noticed it at first. I was so euphoric. I'm not going to be clinical here. You're the physician. I'm just going to be emotional. That moment when a man and a woman couple, the bonds between them are reinforced, total communication occurs, intimacy is at its zenith. Oh, I thought it was sublime. You and me, we were always the perfect yin and yang together. My satisfaction was complete. Yours, to a point. Remember? We considered John Donne's The Good Morrow together. Remember? And now good morrow to our waking souls, which watch not one another out of fear. Love. Love all other senses control and make one little room and everywhere. Oh, I was in the moment fully. You? Sometimes, perhaps? No. It was as if something was holding you back, or you were holding back. I didn't know what it was. Then I sensed it finally. Then I knew. We were at Frank and Jackie's, their communist group. Frank always thought I went for him, the good brother. I went just as much for Jackie. She was such an eccentric. Communism suited her. I often wondered if she had any friends outside of that group. Communism, the vast intellectual frontier, a subject about which we could discourse endlessly when we thought the New Deal hadn't gone far enough and was wrapped up in our minds with the war in Spain, to which we gave money. Kitty gave a husband. Communism. A form of government that failed because it could not square with human psychology, even then. A graduate student of mine was speaking that night. The woman had on a red knit dress, kind of swung out. I watched her walk across the room, and then I watched you watch her walk across the room. You were besotted. You wanted her. Jean, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you ever acted on those feelings or not. It doesn't matter, but it changed the game. It meant there were rivals or potential rivals. I understood, finally. I understand why you couldn't commit. Look, I've never had feelings like that for other men. I needed all of your feelings to be for me. I needed to be the one. Oh, broke my heart. I loved you then. I love you now.
It just couldn't be the same for me after the realization. Gene, it's not wrong. It's what it is. Live your life, and I will live mine. Gene, Dunn considered the same-sex attraction, do you remember? Hand to strange hand, lip to lip, none denies. Why should they, breast to breast or thighs to thighs? Likeness. Likeness begets such strange self-flattery. When touching myself, all seems done to thee. Gene, if good Dr. Dunn thought of it, can it be so wrong for you? Hello, Leonard. First floor. Leonard, it's good to see you. I'm glad we're alone here. You are one of the few people I know who was never a member of the Communist Party. I was not. They made ample use of my money. I always assume you're wearing a wire when I see you. Domestic issues should be safe. We both know someone is recording this, even if you're not wearing a wire. I hope your adult children are thriving in their careers and your wife is happy at last. No, I can't say the same for me. Kitty, our on-again, off-again marriage. Her depressions, my depressions. The parenthood of adult children caught up in the conundrum of my life and legacy, if you want to call it that. Worry. Worry, worry. The one I'm worried about most at present is Tony, my exotically beautiful daughter with a glass constitution. She reminds me of my mother. I think Mother had a glass constitution when she was younger. The sought-after painter who could only paint with one hand because that was all she had. Talent, lots of it. Intellect, most assuredly. My father loved her, but I don't think she much liked herself. Pity. Tony. Tony is brilliant. Beautiful, reserved, but ambitious. That's the rub. She is one of the most outstanding linguistic scholars of our time, and she cannot get a real job because of me. She's been called a communist herself, or at least a socialist. I don't think she even heard those terms until she was 10 years old. Her brother Peter once told me that he believes his sister knows a language, just knows it, when she's only listened to it for half an hour. All of it. With all its nuance and subtext. And he also held that she could duplicate all of its sounds with its diphthongs and precise cadence. She doesn't much want to teach, no. She wants to work with international power brokers and diplomats. She wants to be a genuine bridge between cultures. Can you imagine people not giving someone like that, with that kind of talent and vision and insight, a job? Oh, unbelievable. Oh, and she is still my daughter. You may know this. At different times I tried to give both my son and daughter away. They always seemed to get in the way when they were younger. My work came first. They were always cute enough, well-behaved thanks to Kitty and our social nexus. I just didn't bond with them. And then I did. They deserved a more attentive father, and I certainly did not deserve them. When Tony was in about the 6th grade, she began to become a stunner. I noticed her vaulting intellect, her extraordinary desire to know. I paid attention, fell in love with my own darling child. She didn't know then about the guilt, the lies, the gossip, the finger pointing, the recrimination that goes with being the daughter of a father who has changed the course of history. She knows it now. She knows it now. The saddest part is she lacks the inner strength to deal with it, just like Mother. Both capable of placid fronts, but underneath, no real strength there. And she is still my child. Oh, if only she could get a substantive job. First floor. Leonard, good to see you. Take care of yourself. It's raining out there. Where to? Anywhere? Okay. You know, it seems kind of funny to me that we have to have these private talks in the car. When your mother wanted me to talk with you about the birds and the bees, I had to have that talk in the car. I think you knew more than I did. I kept telling her, they teach a great many things in school today. She wouldn't listen. She never did. She should have had that talk with you herself. She had more experience than I. She had 3 husbands before me. No more tears. No more tears. You haven't let anyone down. You haven't let the family down. It's nobody's fault. If it's anybody's fault, it's mine. I just thought they'd let you in anyway. Pete, there's a great many colleges besides Princeton University. You can get in any one of them if you want. If you want. It might be because the name is so soiled through the McCarthyism. It might be that your grades just aren't where they need to be. Look, I don't know if a post-mortem is appropriate in any event. Pete, your mother and I were never attentive parents. My work always came first. Our social life came second. Just last week, I called the home of a former graduate student, and a woman's daughter answered the phone. She said, "Mother?" I don't know where Mother is, except she must be in the bowels of some laboratory or library. Her work has always come first. That was cold water right in my face. It's precisely how I have always treated the two of you. You deserved a more attentive parent. Look, there's an old saying. Find something that you like to do and then find a way of making a living at it. If college doesn't work out, you should try the building arts. Yes, construction. You know, when you were a child, you were always playing with one kind of block or another. And one time at Perro Caliente, you gave me a severe critique on perspective on one of my paintings. Do you remember that? You kept telling me I wasn't getting the country road and buildings right. We always had such good times at Perro Caliente. It's where we went when we needed the pressure off. Riding horseback, fishing, swimming, discovering history firsthand. It's where your Uncle Frank and I became closer than brothers, the better part of a decade apart. We became best friends. You had your own friends there. Always so happy there. You have to go on. You know, I think if they're going to be grandchildren, they're going to come from you. I don't know why. I think Tony will marry, but if they're going to be grandchildren, I think they'll come from you. Change the name, shorten it if it'll help. But if you do, you won't have a conversation starter. The ideal situation would be for us to have an in-house historian. You want to tell our story. If you want, when you want, but don't write it down. Tell it to people. You'll be the best parent you can be, although you didn't get the imprints from your own. You have your own life to live, Pete. You can't live mine. You've always been a nice person, a good person. I haven't. You can't live my life, and I wouldn't want you to. Since relations are so strained right now between you and your mother over this Princeton rejection, I don't think you should come to Europe with us. Stay home or go somewhere else. Look to yourself for a change. Then the heat will be off between you and Mother. I know, your mother and I. She drinks so much. But what you don't know is that we've decided to leave Perro Caliente to you. You can take over the entire Southwest. You've always been so happy there, and you deserve it. This is the life. St. John, the Virgin Islands, our other hideaway. What's that? You want to buy it? Price doesn't even matter much now. Put in an order. We could add it to our tiny flotilla. Boating. You know, Kitty, if it weren't for boating, I don't think I would have even experienced anything approaching a sport. My parents never introduced me to sport. Never thought I was very good at it. But boating, that one got me. That time when I was sick with tuberculosis all those years ago, it wasn't really tuberculosis, but going down to the sea in ships, boats, that got me through that sick time. My digestion's never been the same since, but part of life is paying prices. Are you sorry we paid the price to stay in the marriage? I'm not. We both strayed from the marriage, but we stayed in it. That counts for something. Why are you looking at me like that? Kitty, you knew my taste for married women. You were one of them. You know, Kitty, I have this theory about you. Remember when you used to say you were descended from European royalty? Your father used to tell you to shut up about it. We all thought you were making it up like you did most things when you were on the sauce. It turned out to be true. You thought you were a princess in disguise and just wanted to be a princess for real. You're not going to like this, but I think that's why you got pregnant with Peter. By marrying me and having some celebrity conferred on you, you got closer to being a princess. It's just some silly theory. I'm sort of free associating here. There are things that could have been better. A princess could have gotten along with her sister-in-law. You and Jackie hated each other. A princess could have had sustained and sustaining friendships. Nope, not in the cards. You always had plenty of help around the house, but I don't think you much liked the children. You put up with them. Maybe that's all we could have hoped for. My own parents weren't on the scene as much as we were. That counts for something. You know, I don't know if you know it, but I think there were times when you wanted me to choose between you and them, especially Peter. That time when you were so angry with him about the rejection by admissions at Princeton, didn't want him to come to Europe with us. It seemed like you wanted to punish him. I went along with it. You know, I wish there'd been more openness between us. I don't think I would have strayed if there had been. But you drank so much. I know. We've had that fight before. You didn't like Los Alamos and what there was of a social scene there, but it was the site of my greatest success, the Manhattan Project. Kitty, once uprooted, I didn't know what would become of you. We went to Perro Caliente. I couldn't seem to tell you that I didn't want to go back to Caltech or Berkeley. There were plenty of offers coming in, some with the promise of big paychecks. I just couldn't get you to listen to me, and I wanted your input. Some of this I have to put back on myself. I was never taught true intimacy as a child. That's cost me. You know, with all the dark years and the spying, I'm glad there were things that we could laugh about. Remember the tapped phone lines? Once, I was out of town, we were on the phone. I heard a click, I thought we were disconnected. I said, "Dear, you still there?" He said, "Yes." I said, "The FBI must have just hung up then." We both burst out laughing. They must have enjoyed that. Kitty. The big one. I am so grateful that you never asked me to apologize for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You knew I saw it as my life's work. I don't think most women would have understood that. You always encouraged my interest in physics, no matter what other people thought. You knew it was the blood in my veins. Thank you. Buy the boat. Kids will love it. I will too. Let's go. I'm getting hungry. Mr. Higgins, I don't think I can write all this down. And I don't know if this answers your questions. Maybe this just gets us closer to the questions. I can't do the math. Is there even math for this? So where does that leave us? With that number I did on myself on film? I am become death, destroyer of worlds. In Sanskrit, death and time are the same. We've established that here. So I am the all-powerful time which destroys all things, or death am I present task destruction? Look, pal, I can't destroy or deconstruct anything in there. No. Today I need the gift of life. Or as one of my old mentors used to say, give us some of that elan vital. Yes. Are you sure? Are they all there? I wouldn't want to go in unless they're all there. All right, I'll be right there. Oh, the hell with it. What difference could it possibly make? I'm already dying. Maybe this is the elan vital I need. Close cover before striking my eye. Close cover before striking. I should understand this. I am a physicist. And God has the last laugh. Physics. Metaphysics. I salute you if you are there. Apparently you are having the last laugh. Now how about giving me something really good? Just this once?